concern. All right, moving now to story number 2, and this is an important story because shops are now open, but malls continue to remain shut. So mall CEOs have now written a letter to everyone, from PMO, Home Ministry, Niti Aayog, all chief ministers, all chief secretaries, and they're saying that opening shopping centers everywhere except in containment zones should be done. You should allow phased opening of malls, extend the current moratorium from 3 months till March 2021, allow automatic renewal of licenses without additional charges, rebate in payment of property taxes, and defer the increase in minimum wage rates. These are their demands, but the basic demand is, boss, please let us open our malls, because your two big concerns, number one, social distancing, and number two, wind circulation, both can be taken care of in a mall. I spoke to 4 top CEOs of 4 big malls in this country. Let's play out that conversation. A lot of restrictions have now been removed. There are easing of restrictions. Standalone shops are allowed. But what about malls? It's interesting that now close to 2 months, malls have been shut because the governments feel that they are a potential place where you can have coronavirus spread. Now, I understand specific places, but in an access-controlled area like a mall where you can at the gate decide who enters and who doesn't, are malls actually the safest place to implement social distancing? Let me take that question across to top CEOs of top malls across the country. With me in this special broadcast, Abhishek Bansal is the Executive Director of Pacific Development Corporation Limited, Manoj Agarwal, CEO of Viviana Mall, Rajneesh Mahajan, the CEO of Inorbit Mall, and Shibu Philips, the CEO of Lulu Mall, right here on NDTV. Very quickly, Mr. Bansal, let me begin by asking you this question. Would you agree with this assessment that given these present circumstances where the need of the hour is social distancing, a mall would be best suited to implement that?
Absolutely, and there's no two questions about it. First and foremost, mall is one place where we can control the number of people coming into the marketplace. Compared to any other local area, that is one big advantage that a mall has. Plus, it being a contained environment and it being a controlled environment, as an owner, as a management agency, we can look after the sanitization, we can check the people walking into the shopping centers, we can check the people then walking further into the stores. Now, all of that can only be done in an environment like a shopping center.
What about the concerns, Mr. Rajneesh Mahajan? I want to bring you in. What about the concerns that the government has of coronavirus spreading from AC ducts, from other places, and it actually spreading in a mall?
So, one has to understand the technology which goes behind air conditioning such large buildings. The comparison or the perception which is driven by a small area air conditioned versus a 100,000 square feet or common areas which are so large, the air conditioning works very differently. The Indian Society for Refrigeration and Air Conditioning, they have come out with guidelines which provides very safe operations. There are SOPs listed by them which will ensure that the air quality is improved and not deteriorated, and it will not add to the spread.
Mr. Shibu Philips, see, the point is that most of these malls will have to adhere to the norms of the states where they're in. For instance, a Delhi mall will have to go by the orders of the Delhi government. That's the nature of the lockdown. That's how it is happening. Individual states can decide what they want to do. Do you think representations have gone from mall owners like you yourself, CEOs, to the government, putting forward these points?
So, SCAI, which is a 12-year-old body which is representing all the malls, all the 650 malls, has jointly made representations, and we have ensured that each of our representations have been sent to all the state governments, the chief ministers, the secretaries, and the Prime Minister's office, the finance minister, home minister. So we have ensured that all our concerns have been raised, and we have sent to RBI with respect to what are the type of moratoriums we require with financial help. We have asked the state governments and the local municipalities what we require with respect to help, with respect to property taxes. And we have made the SOP, which is a 48-page elaborate SOP, giving each and every guidelines on what we will do when we allow us to open. And this also has been given to all the government agencies.
Okay. Now, then in that case, Mr. Manoj Agarwal, what can one actually expect from the government? Because clearly all these representations have not really cut much ice with the governments. It seems that malls are not a priority as of this moment. What do you think needs to be done? I mean, is it just perception as was being mentioned by Mr. Rajneesh Mahajan or something else?
Well, I think it's a little of everything, because I think the priority of the government initially was to control the spread, break the chain of growth of the virus, and make sure that it gets restricted to certain zones. Having said that, in today's time, I think for malls, it would be a safe environment, as the rest of the panelists have also mentioned, because you are able to control entries, you are able to weed out people, you are able to restrict movement and monitor movement, including body scans and many other things. So I think malls being open in today's time is an automatic preference, as much like some of the shops which are opening on the high streets. Mm-hmm. And to that extent also, I think for people also, it is a much better place to visit than to get into certain areas which could be crowded, because, as we have seen when certain areas opened up in the last few weeks. So there was a kind of rush there, and, obviously certain norms are broken. So I think in malls that is very, very easy. So for government, I think what we expect from the government is that, one, they should give us a phase-wise opening schedule, which we have also presented in our representations.
Okay.
Second thing is that mall being infrastructure and cost-heavy in its approach. So we need certain financial support, which may not be very large as in the packages which we have seen with the Honorable Finance Minister has announced. But it could be to the extent of a bank moratorium extending for a certain period, where the loan is adjusted, over the, term of the loan. Secondly, same goes
for the
But Mr.
Agarwal, just curious,
yes.
Don't you think that is automatically applicable? When the first announcement was made on a sort of a moratorium for about 3 months, will that automatically not be applicable on, businesses in a mall?
Well, yes, what I would say is that actually it's gone more as an advisory, and with our banking consortium and our bankers, when we have approached them, so it's like it's kind of a deferment for a few months. And thereafter, there is not a rescheduling which is happening, but a certain adjustment of the MIs for a very short time.
Okay.
Wherein actually we are going to end up paying more for, the deferred period. So what we want is a moratorium where the entire EMIs that we have, those are adjusted across the loan cycle, and also the interest is adjusted across the loan cycle, so that we don't have cash flow issues, because cash flow issues are the ones which are initially troubling the entire retail side, whether we have the developer side or the retail industry side.
Now, from a consumer's point of view, Mr. Bansal, I want to come back to you. Mr. Rajneesh Mahajan's major concern, which in a way he clarified, a major concern for a customer will be, this talk of the air circulating in that AC duct, and thus creating like an echo chamber, like a chamber which will inflict a lot of people with the virus. Now he says, from what I gather, he says that this is a myth. That may not particularly be true. Are there any other quote-unquote myths that we need to talk about, which in a way stigmatize the malls?
Well, first and foremost, I think to get the AC thing out of the way, we have the CPWD guidelines, which have been approved by CPWD on how to maintain your air conditioning. I think all the malls are going to follow that. Things like 40% humidity, the temperature control between 24 to 30 degrees, a special team who's looking after the air conditioning things. Now, all of that once that is done, the biggest, I think the other myth is that the malls are going to be overcrowded from day one. And that is the myth that we need to we are trying to explain here, is that mall is one place where we can control entry of the people. Now, so, for example, we have devised a formula that we need one person per 75 square feet or 80 square feet. We can control that entry compared to a local high street where one can't control the entry and exits. Now, those kind of myths, I think shopping malls are equipped to handle. I think the footfall bit is the other big myth that shouldn't be there.
Okay. Mr. Shibu Philips, would you agree that these two major concerns, overcrowding and AC, is largely a myth and not reality?
Definitely, it's a myth, and countries, if you look at all the countries which has opened up after the pandemic, the Dubai governments and the Central Asian, the Thai government or the Chinese government, they have all allowed the malls to open, and because they understand very clearly that each and every aspect of customer entry, we can ensure that the Arogya Setu app is, look for the staff, so that they're sure that all the staff working in the mall are not coming from any containment zones, or they're all screened properly. Each of every store, we verify ourselves through the SOPs created that they have disinfectant every area. We have a clear audit list. So all this can be controlled by us, and customers can be given a very clear, a confidence that you're entering in an area which is so. I'm sure that
very significant, Mr. Philips. So you're saying that conditions like Arogya Setu app can also be applicable inside a mall, so that the government can track.
Yes, all the staff who are coming to the mall, we are ensuring that all the staff, all the vendors, all of them have this Arogya Setu app downloaded, so they are not. So they're not. So we're giving the confidence back to the consumers that you are in a very controlled environment. You are very sure that everything is in the control of a properly appointed management, which is in control there.
Correct. All right. Thank you so much. Let's just hope that various governments and states as well as the center are hearing what top CEOs seem to be suggesting, that it is actually far safer to operate malls as opposed to a standalone shop, and you can access control. There are myths about air conditioning, all of that. This is interesting perspective. It's always nice to hear the other side of the story. Thank you so much, Mr. Bansal, Mr. Agarwal, Mr. Mahajan, as well as Mr. Philips, for joining us on this broadcast.
Thank you very much.